Hey, it's John with Vision Advisors, and welcome to another Insight with Vision. I want to build upon the conversation we started last week as we were talking about long term care and some of the misconceptions or maybe false realities that people have as they enter retirement. Came across a very interesting article written by the Center for Retirement Research in March of 2019 addressing fertility and long term care. And there's an unforeseen consequence there that I think is a very important conversation starter for you and your clients to have. So let's jump in and take a little bit of a deep dive into some key points from this particular white paper. Really, it starts with a lesson in childbirth. And here's something that's interesting from the U.S. actuarial tables that you can find on SSA.gov. Today in the United States, we're suffering from a declining population base. Why? Birth rates are not outpacing death rates in America. If we look at the legal residents currently here, and we look at what's needed as far as what we call a replacement rate so that the population can stay stable, we are falling short of replacement rate numbers to keep our population in check. Now, there's several reasons cited for that, and one of those is the fact that traditional marriage is on the decline. People are cohabitating together, and many of them are choosing not to have children. Another one that's out there that's cited is the fact that we've seen millions of lives that have not had an opportunity to become a part of society and add to the replacement rate because of the pro-choice scenario that we have in many of the states across the nation. We also have an issue of career or life versus family. People put their career or they want to experience life, travel the world and do all of these things before they decide to start a family. So they're waiting, rather than getting married early, they're waiting later. And as a result of that, the window for having children narrows as well. And then another big contributing factor is the fact that society has gotten so expensive here in the United States and the cost of living so high, it requires most families to have both the husband and the wife working to be able to make ends meet. And when the two-income family becomes the norm, the ability to take time away to raise children really becomes a struggle in cost benefit versus desire. And while many people, according to a number of studies, would love to have more children, the demands of being able to pay the bills and to be able to deal with a very expensive price tag we have here in the United States of just living has really made that much more difficult. Now, another issue that arises, and we've talked about this multiple times, is the fact that we're dealing with an aging populace. A 65-year-old male today is going to live to 84, female 87, and as a result of that, we're seeing a significant number of people in this baby boomer generation that are going to be living long enough for long-term care to really become a significant event and a significant probability for them. Remember, the typical age when a long-term care event starts, according to the Association for Long-Term Care Insurance, is around age 82. Early 80s is when we really start to see those ADL issues really start to manifest in a lot of older folks. Now, it's important to remember, too, where care is provided. Home, adult daycare, assisted living, skilled or custodial nursing care, memory care. But out of those, only one, the home care area, is where informal care can be provided. Everything else is pay to play beyond staying at home. And if given the choice, most individuals would prefer to stay in the comfort and privacy and receive that care at home, if possible, from family or friends without having to pay for that. But there's a strain on resources today, and I want you to see that as we take a look at the numbers that were presented in the CRR study. The cost of paid long-term care expenses, everything beyond informal care in the home, is increasing at a rapid rate. In fact, by the year 2050, we're going to see it increase more than 2 times the current numbers. So in 2019, the average annual cost for a private nursing home is just over $100,000 a year. If we look at the current pressures that are put on the system and the rate at which these costs are rising by the year 2050, that same year in a private nursing home is going to be almost $231,000. That's a pretty significant financial strain on resources, both private resources for the individuals paying out of their own pocket or public resources to have to pay for that as well. Now, there's 2 contributing factors to this fertility versus long-term care arena I want to bring to your attention. And the first one you already know. 10,000 people are turning 65 a day, every day through the year 2030. This is going to be the largest demographic shift to an aging populace that the United States has seen in many, many years. And they're living on average 20 to 25 years in retirement. So they're living long enough for those long-term care events to become much more probable, much more likely. And because of the care and the technology we have today, people are living longer even after they experience a long-term care event. Again, strain on public and private resources. The second issue that we see as far as a contributing factor, and this really goes back to the fertility versus long-term care unforeseen consequence I want to point out, and that's this. Today, there are 1 in 7 Americans that are in what we call the peak caregiving years. Many of them are part of what we call the sandwich generation. People between 45 and 64 that are not only continuing to raise their own family, but they're now providing informal care for aging family members, usually parents. But because we're not replenishing the birth rate and we're not having the numbers come in to replace this 45 to 64 segment, as they move into the period of time that they're going to be more likely to need care, look at the numbers. By 2050, the number of Americans that would be available to be part of that sandwich generation in those peak caregiving years is going to be more than cut in half. We're going from 1 in 7 to 1 in 3. So the net result is this. There's not going to be enough people, i.e. family members in the future, to be able to provide that informal care in the home that many of us hope is going to be there. So what's the end result? If we think about the implications of a lower fertility rate coupled with the future demand for long-term care services, this is going to be a dramatic shift. It's going to be a serious issue. The care community is responding, and if you look around the country, you see long-term care facilities beefing up their capabilities, adding additional bed space, building additional centers where they can actually handle this influx of people that are going to need care in the future. Why? Because they can see the numbers. They know the statistics are real. But if you remember back to what we talked about in our insight last week, we talked about the fact that although the numbers show that 7 in 10 people 65 and older are going to deal with a long-term care event before they die, only a third of them believe that it was likely going to happen to them. This putting on the blinders and refusing to face reality, or the belief that they're Superman or Superwoman and it's not going to happen to them, is just not realistic from a planning perspective. So what are we going to see? More Americans as they age, living longer because of technology and the fact that we're taking better care of ourselves, but they're not going to have the availability to benefit from informal care that could be provided by family and friends. Why? Because the numbers are not there to replace the deaths on one end and bringing up a generation behind to provide that care. The net result, long-term care for many individuals early in retirement or just now preparing to transition into retirement is going to cost them more than they expected. So what's the alternative for them? Your clients need a plan to address these long-term care contingencies should they occur in the future. You are the conversation starter that needs to be having that dialogue with your clients today. You've got to address these false realities that they believe are real and let them see what the statistical data says. Help them see that the numbers don't lie and that they need to have a plan in place to address these issues. Now, they can address it a number of different ways. They can go through denial. They can just say, I'm going to let the government pay for me, and wherever they want to put me and whatever quality of service they want to provide, I'm okay with. Or if they want a better quality experience, they've got to plan today while they're healthy. Traditional long-term care solutions are still available. There are a number of asset-based solutions that are now available today that previously were not, that allow you to have some planning flexibility you didn't in the past. Of course, getting with an attorney and doing the appropriate planning with trust and other documents to make sure that you protect assets can be another valuable step in the process. but you've got to start the conversation and engage your clients. Because as we look at retirement planning, we consistently see across the United States, this is an area that's often overlooked or ignored because clients don't want to have this conversation. They don't want to face that reality. And it's up to you to start the conversation. It's up to you to challenge the status quo, because the only way you're going to make sure that they have the best opportunity to enjoy retirement, no matter how long it lasts, is to make sure they've got sustainable income. And in the event they get sick, they're going to need more sustainable income to pay the healthcare costs, to pay the care costs that are custodial in nature, but also to pay for the cost of living. We can help you put that plan together, and we'd love an opportunity to further a dialogue with you on how to start and engage your clients in that long-term care conversation. You can reach us at Vision Advisors, 800-505-8489. This is John Terry. Thank you for joining us for another Insight with Vision.